Have you ever noticed that some moments of awareness feel like a quiet mirror reflecting everything, while others feel like a spotlight cutting through noise? Welcome to Beyond the Mind channel. Kashmir Shaivism offers a remarkably direct map of awareness, not as a passive container, but as a dynamic, self-illuminating presence that both reveals and enacts reality. Modern neuroscience asks a similar question from a different angle. What brain processes make awareness possible, and how do they produce the felt sense of being awake? In this video, we'll bring these two traditions together. We will translate core Kashmir Shaiva ideas into working concepts, compare them with contemporary neuroscience models, and extract practical insights you can use in practice and research. Quick orientation. Kashmir Shaivism speaks in first person, metaphysical language. Shiva as pure consciousness, Shakti as dynamic power or manifestation, Spanda as subtle vibration or pulsation of awareness, and Pratyabhijna as recognition, the moment awareness recognizes itself. These are not fanciful metaphors for devotees only. They are precise descriptions of lived experience that can be reframed as testable hypotheses about attention, self-representation, and the dynamics of consciousness. Why this matters. Neuroscience often approaches consciousness from the outside in networks, firing patterns, and information flow. Kashmir Shaivism approaches it from the inside out, the structure of experience and the way awareness recognizes itself. Putting these views in dialogue lets us ask better questions. For example, what neural architecture could support a self-recognizing awareness? How might oscillatory pulses of brain activity map to the Shiva idea of Spanda? And crucially, how can practice alter those dynamics in measurable ways? What you'll get in this episode: a concise primer on the essential Kashmir Shaiva terms and experiential claims, translated into contemporary cognitive language, and accessible mapping between those claims and neuroscience frameworks like recurrent processing, global workspace dynamics, predictive coding, and interoceptive signaling. Practical experiments and contemplative practices that let you test the hypotheses in your own lived experience. A 4-week plan to cultivate the capacities Shaivism describes: stable presence, refined recognition, and responsive embodiment, using methods compatible with safety and modern life. A few important caveats before we continue. First, translation is creative and partial. I'm not arguing for mystical literalism or for reducing Shaivism to brain mechanics. Instead, we use each tradition as a tool to illuminate the other. Second, if you have a history of intense dissociation, psychosis, or trauma, some inquiry into awareness can be destabilizing. Approach gently and consult a qualified clinician or teacher as needed. Third, keep curiosity as your guide. We'll emphasize short, testable practices rather than dogma. Practical prep. Have a notebook or notes app ready. Throughout the video, you'll be invited to make simple observations, a one-line baseline about your current sense of presence, and a short rating of clarity or distraction. These immediate observations will make the later practices and measurements meaningful. Structure of the course. Part 2 will introduce key Kashmiri concepts in experiential language and offer brief phenomenological prompts so you can feel the distinctions. Part 3 will map those phenomena onto neural mechanisms and current models of consciousness. Part 4 will give you concrete practices and micro-experiments to test the mappings. Part 5 will offer an integration plan, simple metrics to track change, and guidance about ethical and safety considerations. When you're ready, breathe gently and notice the felt space of awareness for a moment, the background that knows. We'll begin Part 2 with a careful, experiential walkthrough of the Shaiva concepts and what they ask us to notice. Core Kashmiri Shaiva concepts in experiential language. In this section, we'll translate a handful of central Kashmiri Shaiva terms into experiential descriptions you can feel for yourself. For each concept, I'll give a short plain language definition, an example of how it shows up in moment-to-moment experience, and a brief phenomenological prompt you can try right now. These prompts are very short, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, so you can test the distinctions immediately and bring concrete data into later sections. Shiva, pure, self-illuminating awareness. Plain meaning. Awareness is the ground that knows. Not an object among objects, but the simple presence in which everything appears. How it feels. A background quality that isn't thinking, seeing, or sensing content. It's the knowingness that allows those events to be known. Often it feels like a quiet, unobtrusive space that does not need to do anything to be aware. Prompt: 30 to 60 seconds sit upright. Soften the eyes and let attention relax. Instead of looking at thoughts or sensations, try to notice the knowing itself, the fact that you are aware. Don't try to make anything happen. Just notice the presence that notices. Shakti, dynamic power or manifesting energy. Plain meaning. The dynamic aspect of consciousness, movement, creativity, emergence. If Shiva is the space of knowing, Shakti is the activity that manifests forms within that space. How it feels, the sense of movement, intention, imagery, effect, and the felt push that brings content into being. The creative flow in thought, sensation, and perception. Prompt: 30 to 60 seconds after noticing the background of awareness. Now notice what moves within it. Images, impulses, urges, tonal shifts. Trace one small arising, a thought, an itch, a memory, and feel the energy that brings it into experience. Spanda, the subtle pulsation or vibration of awareness. Plain meaning. The subtle, rhythmic quiver or pulse that animates awareness and experience. An inner vibration that precedes fully formed thought. How it feels. Not a physical tremor, but a felt subtle movement. A tiny swell and release. A subtle tone that underlies feeling. It often shows up at the boundary between calm and expression. Prompt: 45 to 90 seconds, place a hand on the belly or near the sternum and breathe gently. Attend to the smallest micro-movement or tone that seems to precede bigger sensations or thoughts. Notice any subtle swell, like a tiny ripple under the surface of awareness. Pratyabhijna, recognition or self-recognition. Plain meaning. The moment awareness recognizes itself and its own freedom, an immediate "I know that I know." It's not an inference, but an experiential recognition. How it feels. A brief clarity where subject and object lapse into a single luminous event. You see that you are seeing. There's often a tiny shift. Things look the same, but there's a different flavor of immediacy. Prompt: 30 to 60 seconds, bring a simple visual object into view. Patch of wall or your hand. Notice looking at it, then gently shift attention to the fact, I am looking. Hold that reflexive knowing for a breath, and note any change in tone or clarity. Abhasa and Anubhava, manifestation and lived experience. Plain meaning. Abhasa, the appearance or reflection of consciousness as phenomena. Anubhava, the felt, lived experience of those appearances. How it feels. Abhasa is the way content shows up, the image, the sound. Anubhava is how it is lived, the effect, the sense of immediacy. Prompt: 30 to 60 seconds, choose a recent emotional memory. First notice the image or words, Abhasa. Then move inward to the felt tone, the chest, breath, temperature, Anubhava. Observe how form and feeling relate. Svatantrya, autonomous power or freedom of consciousness. Plain meaning. The idea that awareness is spontaneously free. It has an inherent capacity to manifest without external cause. In practice, this emphasizes agency at the level of attention and recognition. How it feels. A subtle sense that attention can choose posture, focus, or attitude. Even in constraint, there's an irreducible capacity to register and respond. Prompt: 30 seconds, notice one small choice you can make right now and how you relate to experience. Soften your jaw. Lengthen the out-breath, or shift from evaluating to describing. Taste the freedom in that choice. Putting the pieces together, a short integrated prompt, 90 to 120 seconds. Soften the eyes and notice the background knowing Shiva. For 10 to 15 seconds, Shift to feel any movement or arising Shakti for 15 to 20 seconds. Attend to the tiniest ripple or pulse that precedes the arising Spanda for 20 to 30 seconds. Bring reflexive recognition. Notice that you notice Pratyabhijna for 10 to 15 seconds. As you finish, note one concrete change in tone, clarity, or felt agency, and jot a single line in your notes. A short note on attitude. These prompts are exploratory, not performative. The aim is gentle noticing and small data gathering. Don't strive for mystical states. Treat each prompt as a quick experiment in awareness. In the next section, we will map these lived phenomena to specific neural mechanisms and show how practice can bias those mechanisms toward the qualities Shaivism highlights. When you're ready, proceed to Part 3, Neural Mechanisms. How Shaiva phenomena map to brain systems. This section links the lived phenomena you practiced in Part 2 to concrete neural processes and measurable signals. The goal is pragmatic. Show plausible mappings, point to observable markers, and highlight how practice can bias these mechanisms. These mappings are hypotheses, useful for designing experiments and practical practice, not literal reductions of tradition to tissue. Shiva, pure, self-illuminating awareness, background global availability / baseline consciousness neural mapping. Sustained, low-effort availability of awareness resembles global workspace or recurrent processing that keeps contents reportable. Key nodes include frontoparietal control hubs, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, inferior parietal, thalamus, and posterior. Hot zone regions implicated in conscious content, posterior cingulate, precuneus, posterior parietal. Measurable signatures, a tonic level of cortical repertoire accessibility, e.g. persistent, low variance EEG alpha/beta background with transient bursts of higher frequency content when stimuli arise, stable baseline functional connectivity among integrative hubs, reduced intrusive DMN dominance when awareness is steady. Practical implication. Practices that stabilize Shiva should increase the ease of reporting experience, raise meta-awareness frequency, and reduce surprise-driven reactivity. Measurable changes, fewer unrecognized distractions and short sit tests, faster recognition latency when asked, "Were you aware you were mind-wandering?" Shakti, dynamic power / manifestation, phasic sensorimotor and effective processing, neuromodulatory drive neural mapping. Shakti maps to the brain's generative and action-producing processes, sensory cortices, salience and sensorimotor networks, plus neuromodulatory systems, locus coeruleus norepinephrine, ventral tegmental dopamine, that adjust gain and novelty seeking. Measurable signatures, transient increases in gamma/theta power during creative surges, elevated pupil dilation LCNE, proxy during high Shakti states, and increased functional coupling between sensory cortices and prefrontal evaluative regions. Practical implication. Practices that cultivate refined Shakti train controlled emergence, ability to summon ideas, images, or intentional actions without dysregulated reactivity. Measurable changes, improved signal-to-noise in task performance, cleaner onset/offset control when initiating mental actions. Spanda, subtle pulsation, transient oscillatory pulses, phasic thalamocortical resonance neural mapping. Spanda aligns naturally with neural oscillations and transient synchronization events, brief phase resets, microstate shifts, and thalamocortical resonance that precede full content formation. Think sub-second pulses that gate perception and enact ion, theta/alpha bursts, phasic synchrony. Measurable signatures, brief increases in cross-frequency coupling, theta gamma, phase reset events preceding reportable sensations, or rapid microstate transitions in EEG/MEG. High-resolution measures might show a tiny pre-activation pattern before conscious content crystallizes. Practical implication. Practices that heighten sensitivity to Spanda, increased detection of precognitive ripples, better early warning for effective escalation, and more precise timing for intervention. Measurable changes, more frequent report of felt premonition moments, Earlier interception of habit impulses. Pratyabhijna, recognition/self-recognition. Meta-awareness, reflexive monitoring, and frontopolar networks neural mapping. Pratyabhijna corresponds to meta-awareness, the brain representing its own representational state. Neural correlates include anterior prefrontal cortex/frontopolar cortex, anterior cingulate, error/monitoring, and anterior insula, interoceptive awareness. These regions support reflexive access and reportability, measurable signatures, increased activity/coherence in frontopolar and insular regions during moments of self-recognition, measurable shifts in pupil/HRV at recognition onset, and decreased reaction time between occurrence and report. Practical implication. Strengthening Pratyabhijna shortens the latency between an event and conscious recognition of that event, enabling earlier choice. Measurable outcome. Reduced time to recognition in rapid awareness probes. Higher frequency of "I noticed I was lost in thought" reports. Abhasa and Anubhava. Appearance versus lived feeling. Content representation versus affective/interoceptive encoding neural mapping. Abhasa, form/appearance. Maps to perceptual representational systems, visual/auditory cortex, multisensory association areas. Anubhava, felt living. Maps to interoceptive, affective systems, insula, somatosensory cortices, limbic structures. The coupling strength between representational and interoceptive systems determines how vivid and embodied an experience feels. Measurable signatures. Covariance between sensory cortex activation and insular/limbic responses. Differences in subjective vividness correlate with cross-regional connectivity on fMRI and with amplitude of late ERP components. Practical implication. Practices that separate noticing form from its felt tone increase flexibility. You can observe sensations without automatic affective fusion. Measurable change. Lower affective reactivity scores for matched sensory triggers. Decreased co-activation of sensory and limbic regions. Svatantrya, autonomous freedom of consciousness, intrinsic spontaneous activity, agency networks, and top-down modulatory capacity neural mapping. Svatantrya corresponds to the brain's spontaneous generative capacity and the ability of prefrontal control networks to create endogenous states. This implicates intrinsic cortical activity, frontoparietal control networks, and neuromodulatory tuning that allows for internally driven exploration, exploit/explore balance. Measurable signatures. Increased variability and richness of spontaneous activity in resting state scans, diverse microstates, adaptive shifts in network balance during volitional tasks, and stronger functional connectivity enabling internally generated shifts without external trigger. Practical implication, cultivating. Svatantrya increases felt agency over attention and effect, more choices about where to place awareness. Measurable outcomes, higher scores on intentional control questionnaires, greater flexibility in task switching, improved self-reported sense of agency, cross-cutting neural dynamics and practical markers. Oscillatory scaffolding. Many Shaiva claims hinge on the idea of subtle vibration. Neuroscientifically, this is oscillatory synchrony and cross-frequency coupling. Practices that slow breath and add subtle vibration, humming, increase low-frequency coherence and HRV, measurable with EEG and ECG. Meta-awareness training. Increasing Pratyabhijna should show up as increased frontoparietal/insula activation and shorter recognition latencies in experience sampling tasks, reduced DMN intrusions. Sustained Shiva-like background awareness correlates with reduced uncontrolled DMN dominance, less mind-wandering, and improved task-related connectivity, autonomic. Readouts. HRV and pupillometry are inexpensive proxies for vagal tone and LCNE activity. Changes in these metrics often parallel shifts in felt presence and regulatory capacity. Plasticity timescales. Short-term changes, minutes to hours, show as oscillatory shifts and HRV modulation. Longer-term structural or connectivity changes require weeks/months of consistent practice. Designing simple experiments you can try. Awareness latency probe. Sit for 2 minutes. When a bell rings at random intervals, press a key as soon as you notice an inner shift or thought. Baseline the delay. Then practice the integrated prompts daily and retest weekly. Hypothesis. Pratyabhijna latency decreases. HRV pre/post Spanda practice. Measure 2-minute resting HRV. Perform a 5 to 10 minute Spanda sensitivity practice. Micropulsation attention plus breath. Then measure HRV again. Hypothesis. Immediate increase in vagal indices, form versus feeling dissociation. Present or recall a short image and rate vividness, form, and effect feeling. After 2 weeks of Abhasa/Anubhava practice, compare coupling. Hypothesis. Lower effective coupling for comparable form vividness. Resting state microstate diversity. Use simple EG apps or research setups to compare microstate repertoire before and after a month of Svatantrya-oriented volitional attention training. Hypothesis. Increased microstate diversity and flexible switching. Caveats and epistemic humility. Mapping rich first-person categories to third-person neural measures is inherently inferential. Correlation doesn't prove identity. Use these mappings as functional hypotheses for practice and measurement, not as ontological claims. Individual variability is large. People's neural signatures and phenomenology differ. Emphasize within-person baselines and small n repeated measures rather than cross-sectional claims. Some practices can destabilize rapid derealization, dissociation in sensitive individuals. If you have psychiatric history, work with a clinician or experienced contemplative teacher. Transition to practice. We've sketched plausible neural substrates for Shiva, Shakti, Spanda, Pratyabhijna, Abhasa/Anubhava, and Svatantrya, and offered measurable markers and simple experiments. In Part 4, we'll turn these mappings into concrete micro-practices and step-by-step experiments you can run at home to test and cultivate the capacities Shaivism highlights, with safety checks and simple tracking methods. When you're ready, move on to Part 4, practical practices and micro-experiments. This section turns the mappings from Part 3 into concrete, repeatable practices and small experiments you can run on your own. Each exercise includes step-by-step instructions, a simple measurable hypothesis, beginner/advanced variations, and safety notes. Use a notebook or notes app to log each run, date, practice, brief rating/number, one-line observation. Exercise 1, Shiva stabilization, background awareness, 5 to 10 minutes. Purpose. Cultivate a steady, reportable background of awareness, the space that knows. Steps. 1. Sit upright, shoulders relaxed, soft gaze or eyes closed. 2. Take 3 slow diaphragmatic breaths to settle. 3. Soften attention to include the whole field of experience, sensations, sounds, thoughts, without focusing on any one content. 4. When a thought or sensation pulls you, note thought or sensation. Then gently return to the open background. 5. After 5 to 10 minutes, record. Number of notes, how many distractions are labeled, and a subjective calm/clarity rating, 1 to 5. Hypothesis. With practice, label counts decrease and clarity rating increases. Beginner. Eyes open, do 3 to 5 minutes. Allow more frequent noting. Advanced. Do 10 minutes with longer silent stretches and reduce labeling to brief internal tags. Safety. If you feel dissociated or spacey, shorten the session and place a hand on your belly to ground. Exercise 2, Shakti generation, directed manifestation, 8 to 15 minutes. Purpose. Practice intentionally generating and shaping mental/affective energy. Creative activation without dysregulation. Steps. 1. Sit comfortably and take 1 minute of Shiva stabilization. 2. Choose a small, constructive intention. Imagine composing a short paragraph or visualizing a single helpful image. 3. Use breath and mild effect. Inhale to gather attention for 3 counts. Exhale to release and hold the image for 4 to 6 counts. 4. Repeat intentional summons for 6 to 10 cycles. Notice onset control, how quickly the image or impulse appears, and how easily you release it. 5. Log. Number of successful summons, 1 to 10, and control rating, 1 to 5. Hypothesis. Practice increases speed and precision of intentional generation and reduces intrusive spillover. Beginner. Use simple sensory images, red dot candle. Limit to 6 cycles. Advanced. Create brief multisensory scenes and practice rapidly switching between generated scenes. Safety. Avoid emotionally charged aversive imagery without guidance. Exercise 3. Spanda sensitivity, micropulsation detection. 5 to 12 minutes. Purpose. Heighten awareness of subtle precognitive ripples, tiny pulses before full content arises. Steps. 1. Sit quietly and place a hand on the sternum or belly. 2. Breathe gently for 1 minute. 3. For the next 5 to 10 minutes, watch for the smallest swell, tone, or micro-movement that seems to precede a thought, feeling, or urge. When you notice it, quietly note pulse and observe whether the anticipated content follows and how long it takes. 4. Log. Number of pulses noticed and percent that preceded a following event. Hypothesis. Sensitivity to pre-events improves with practice. Early detection increases opportunity for intervention. Beginner. Start with 5 minutes and expect few detections. Advanced. Attempt a time and intervention. Pause. 2-breath reset. Immediately after noticing and record whether it altered the outcome. Safety. If noticing becomes hypervigilant or anxious, return to simple breath awareness. Exercise 4. Pratyabhijna training. Recognition latency probe. 10 minutes. Purpose. Shorten the lag between an event and the reflexive, I noticed response. Steps. 1. Set a random interval bell/tone app to ring 6 to 8 times over 6 to 8 minutes, random spacing. 2. When the bell rings, press a key or tap the screen as soon as you notice an inner shift, thought arising, mind wandering, emotional change. If you miss noticing and only notice later, still tap, but mark it as delayed. 3. After the run, compute proportion of immediate taps versus delayed taps and note average subjective delay, estimate seconds. 4. Practice daily and track changes. Hypothesis. With practice, immediate recognition increases and average delay decreases. Beginner. Intentionally broaden acceptance. Aim to notice any inward shift. Advanced. Combine with Spanda sensitivity to respond before full content forms. Safety. Keep sessions short to avoid frustration. Interpret missed taps as data, not failure. Exercise 5. Abhasa versus Anubhava differentiation, form versus felt. 8 to 12 minutes. Purpose. Decouple perceptual form from automatic affective fusion so you can observe without being swept. Steps. 1. Select a neutral image or recall a recent experience. 2. Spend 30 to 60 seconds describing only the form, colors, shapes, sequences, inwardly. This is Abhasa. Rate vividness 1 to 5. 3. Then spend 30 to 60 seconds describing only the felt tone, temperature, chest tightness, tension. This is Anubhava. Rate intensity 1 to 5. 4. Repeat 2 more times with different images and log the correlation between form vividness and effect intensity. 5. Practice labeling form versus feeling in daily moments for 1 week and retest. Hypothesis. Practice reduces coupling between form vividness and effect intensity. You can perceive without automatic effective escalation. Beginner. Use simple neutral images to avoid strong effect. Advanced. Practice with mildly charged memories and no change in effective coupling over time. Safety. Avoid traumatic memories without professional support. Exercise 6. Svatantrya volitional shifts, deliberate attention autonomy. 5 to 15 minutes. Purpose. Exercise freedom of attention, the ability to choose where and how to focus irrespective of external pulls. Steps 1. Begin with 1 to 2 minutes Shiva stabilization. 2. Intentionally redirect attention to an otherwise ignored, subtle sensation, e.g., the sound at a distance, the weight of your feet, and hold for 30 to 60 seconds. 3. Then voluntarily move attention to an internally generated image or intention and hold. 4. Repeat 4 to 6 cycles, noting success rate and felt sense of agency after each. 5. Log agency rating, 1 to 5, and number of successful holds. Hypothesis. Repeated volitional shifts increase subjective agency and improve task switching. Beginner. Practice with short holds, 15 to 30 seconds. Advanced. Increase number of rapid shifts and combine with a simple cognitive task to test flexibility. Safety. If volitional shifts feel effortful or frustrating, reduce pace. Integrated sequence, short practice to link Shaiva capacities, 12 to 20 minutes. Purpose. Combine Shiva, Spanda, Pratyabhijna, Shakti, Svatantrya in a compact, testable routine. Steps 1. Shiva stabilization, 2 to 3 minutes. 2. Spanda sensitivity microcheck, 2 to 3 minutes. Notice pulses. 3. Pratyabhijna bell probe with 3 to 4 random tones, 3 to 4 minutes. 4. Shakti generation. Summon a helpful image/idea for 3 to 4 cycles. 5. Svatantrya pick and hold. Choose a subtle sensation and hold for 30 to 60 seconds. 6. Journal one line. Biggest difference noticed. Hypothesis. Link practice increases cross-capacity benefit, e.g., better recognition after pull sensitivity. Variation. Reverse order to see if different sequencing alters outcomes. Daily micro-rules, 30 to 60 seconds each. 2 breath reset. 2 diaphragmatic breaths with extended exhale. Inhale 4, exhale 6. Used before triggers. Pulse check. A quick 30-second Spanda scan when tension rises. Recognition tag. Silently say noticed the moment you become aware of a mental event to strengthen Pratyabhijna. Measurement and logging template. Simple. 1 line per practice. Date, practice name, duration, metrics, e.g. labels. 5. Agency 3. 1 observation sentence. Example, 20260208. Shiva stabilization, 7 minutes. Label 6. Clarity 3. Less jaw tension after practice. Troubleshooting and safety notes. Dissociation or derealization. Shorten sessions. Do grounding, feet on floor, cold water on face. Stop focusing on emptiness and return to body sensations. Seek professional guidance if persistent. Overactivation. Racing thoughts after Shakti use soothing breath, humming exhale, and reduce generation intensity. Lightheadedness. Rare slow the breath. Breathe naturally. Sit down. Emotional surfacing. Label feelings. Breathe. Pause. If intense, stop and seek support. Dosage and scheduling practical. Beginners, choose 2 5 to 10 minute exercises per day, 1 stabilization plus 1 other, and 1 micro-tool trigger pause. Intermediate, daily integrated sequence, 12 to 20 minutes, plus 2 micro-tools. Advanced, multiple short sessions, total 30 plus minutes/day, with experiment loops. See Part 5 for week plan. Consistency beats duration. 5 to 10 minutes daily is better than irregular long sessions. When you're ready, use these practices for 1 to 4 weeks while tracking the simple metrics above. Part 5 will present a suggested 4-week sequencing plan, specific experiment schedules, and ways to interpret your logs for steady progress. Integration plan, measurement, safety, and close 4-week sequence program, practical and progressive. Week 1, Foundation, Stability plus Baseline. Daily, Shiva Stabilization, 5 minutes, Soft Open Awareness, Label Distractions. Micro-tools, 2 breath reset before 3 daily triggers, phone unlocked, before meeting, before eating. Spanda scan. 1 to 2 short checks, 30, 60s. During the day, 1 reframe protocol session, 10 minutes, midweek, logging. 1 line per day, see template. Week 2, build controlled emergence. Maintain week 1 routines. Add Shakti generation practice 4 times this week, 6 to 10 cycles, 8 to 12 minutes total per session. Run the recognition latency probe, Pratyabhijna training, twice this week. Continue 2 breath resets and Spanda scans. Log after each session. Week 3, link and experiment. Daily integrated sequence, 12 to 20 minutes combining Shiva, Spanda, Pratyabhijna, Shakti, Svatantrya, 5 times this week. Start 1 mini experiment loop. Choose 1 micro habit. Run 7 trials across the week. Log each trial. Add Abhasa/Anubhava differentiation practice twice this week. Continue micro rules and daily logging. Week 4, measure, adjust, and consolidate. Maintain key practices you found useful. Aim for 10 to 20 minutes/day total. Review logs. Compute weekly averages and trends. Run the HRV pre/post Spanda practice comparison once midweek. Decide. Pick 2 to 3 core practices to continue long-term and set realistic cadence, e.g., 5 to 10 minutes twice daily. Prepare a 3-month plan if you wish to scale. Daily and weekly schedule template. Example, morning 5 to 10 minutes Shiva stabilization plus 2 breath reset. Midday 5 to 15 minutes short integrated practice or Shakti/Spanda block. Evening, optional 5 to 10 minutes of Abhasa/Anubhava practice or humming exhale for downshift. Daily micro rules. Post checks and trigger pauses as needed. Weekly review. 5 minutes on Sunday. Average metrics, 1 sentence observation. Next week adjustment. Logging template, 1 line per practice. Use a simple line you can paste into a notes app. February 9th, 2026. Shiva 7M. Label 6. Clarity 3 note. Less jaw tension. Suggested fields. Date, practice name, duration, metrics, 1 line observation. Metrics to track, simple, reliable. Labels per sit, distraction counts. Target, decrease over weeks. Subjective clarity/calm, 1 to 5. Post-practice, target, upward trend. Recognition latency, seconds, or proportion immediate versus delayed. Target, decrease in latency.hrv, RMSSD. Pre/post for short Spanda session. Target, modest immediate increase post-practice. Behavioral metric tied to micro-habit, e.g., pauses before reply per day. Target, more pauses. Agency rating, 1 to 5, after Svatantrya. Practice, target, increase. How to read your data. Practical rules. Compare weekly averages rather than daily noise. Use a 7-day moving average for smoother trends. Expect nonlinear progress. Small dips are normal and informative. Use them to adjust practice. Meaningful change examples, 20-30% reduction in labels or recognition latency over 3 to 4 weeks. Consistent small increases in HRV post-practice. Treat these as signals, not absolute proof. Use with in-person comparisons, your baseline versus your later weeks, rather than comparing to others. Experiment ideas, short, testable. Awareness latency probe. Bell app test, once weekly. Record average latency. Hypothesis. Latency decreases. HRV Spanda test. 2 min baseline HRV, 8 min Spanda practice, 2 min post HRV. Repeat weekly. Hypothesis. Immediate HRV rise post-practice and longer-term baseline improvement. Micro-habit loop. Apply 2 breath reset before 7 target interactions. Log reactivity metric each time. Hypothesis. Reactive replies decline across trials. Troubleshooting and safety guidance if you feel dissociated, dizzy, or overly spacey. Stop, ground, feet on floor. Suit up with cold water on face. Name 5 external things. Shorten sessions and consult a clinician if persistent, if breath or Shakti work spikes anxiety. Reduce intensity. remove retentions, and use gentle exhale emphasis plus humming. Medical cautions: avoid forceful breath work if pregnant, hypertensive, post-surgery, or with glaucoma. Consult your provider first. Trauma sensitivity: interoceptive and awareness practices can activate trauma. Favor micro-resets, guided trauma-informed approaches, or professional support. Ethical and cultural note: these practices are adaptations and translations intended for respectful, curiosity-driven exploration. Honor the source traditions and avoid claiming cultural ownership. Use practices for personal development and safety. Do not present them as clinical cures. Interpreting long-term results after 1 month. Expect clearer meta-awareness, more frequent 2-breath resets, and modest improvements in short metrics after 3 months. Potential shifts in baseline regulation, less impulsive reactivity, easier refocusing, and clearer agency and attention. Keep running small experiments. Sustainable progress is iterative. Treat practice as lifelong skill development, not a one-off fix. Next steps and integration ideas pair practices with simple habits: coffee. Commute for automaticity. Share a 7-day micro-challenge with a friend for accountability. If interested in measurement, incorporate simple HRV or reaction time tools and keep with in-person baselines. Consider periodic retrospective sessions, 5 to 10 minutes, each month to refine triggers and pick new micro-experiments. Final reflections. Kashmir Shaivism offers rich phenomenological descriptions of awareness. Modern neuroscience provides tools to measure and test those descriptions. Combining both lets you run small, pragmatic experiments on your own experience. Stabilize background knowing. Tune into the subtle pulse of Spanda. Reduce recognition lag. And cultivate volitional freedom. Use short, repeatable practices and simple metrics. Let curiosity, not pressure, guide you. If you are a true seeker of higher wisdom and self-knowledge, subscribe to this channel and discover your true potential.